Welcome to Progress in Practice, where we explore what it really takes to build and sustain a professional service business. The hard lessons, the smart moves, the uncomfortable truths. Because success leaves clues, if you're willing to look for them. I'm Charlie Redding. Let's dive in. So Simon, welcome to the Progress in Practice podcast. I'm looking forward to chatting to you and interviewing you again, actually, because you're the first person that's bridged the business of endurance and the Progress in Practice podcast. So looking forward to diving into this and all things about Firmative. So what I like to do to kick things off is, for those people that don't know anything about you, who do you serve, how do you help them, and what makes you guys different?
Wow. Firstly, thanks for having me on. It's good to see you again. And lots has changed and not much has changed. So diving straight in, I've had the privilege of working at Firmative now for about 16 months. And the story goes that the founder came for an interview at the agency I founded around 10 years ago, didn't get the job, but apparently I gave him some good advice, which was to focus on your passion. And so he went off and built a music-focused production business. Very successful, working with the likes of Atlantic, Sony, Universal, record labels. And then 18 months ago approached me to ask if I could come on board to be his chairman. So we sort of got to an agreement pretty quickly. And in that last sort of 15 months, my role has changed quite a lot. And Firmative as a brand, as a creative company, as we like to call ourselves, we very much put brands in culture. And not only put brands in culture, we make sure they stay there and help them become a welcome guest in culture. And that's something really important, because we all know how brands often gate crash culture, take the best bits and leave it a mess. With our background in music, sport, entertainment, fashion, we've got two very distinct groups of people at the business. We've got the very young people who are in culture, and you have myself and my strategy director, James, who are very much in the background. So we're the operational, boring, strategic people, and we have some really cool cats who are putting brands in culture.
Brilliant. I love it. And when you say put brands in culture, for those of us that kind of might be questioning exactly what that means, give us an example.
Yeah, I mean, look, that it can manifest itself in all sorts of different ways. The usual agency lens, it could be with strategy, creative, production, experiences, all of which we do in-house. As I said, we have our roots in music, and as you know, music is very much at the heart of culture, as is sport, which is obviously my background. But yeah, we're working with the likes of with Netflix. We're about to launch a very well-known US whiskey brand in the UK. So yeah, it's I suppose it's having the insights and understanding how we can sew a brand story into culture authentically, and that can take time and not upsetting the culture. So what we're obviously not about is sort of gate crashing events. You see so much stuff, especially this summer, actually. There's a lot of well-known brands sponsoring music festivals, and they'll make a real hash of it. They're incredibly jarring, the activations, what they do. But yeah, on briefs like that, we just make sure that the brand plays a really useful role and actually makes the experience better, rather than acting like a leech and sucking all the life out of the culture.
And I guess what makes you different is that sort of piece that you're trying to really align these brands with the culture, as opposed to just essentially slapping it with a sponsorship label.
I mean, yes. And I think what also is really important to stress is that we're a creative company that's born out of a very agile studio. So usually the way around it works is that a creative agency who makes ads will try and launch a studio that can create content efficiently and in an agile nature for its clients. Whereas because we're born out of speed and quality, it means we can create a lot of assets for our clients. So we've got a way of working we call the third way of working, which is a lovely blend of, I guess, strategy, creative, and production. So with Netflix, for example, we've got quite a long-term relationship with them now, that we're shooting once a month with them and create hundreds of assets that they can use across their channels. Likewise, on a music video or a music shoot for, say, for example, Atlantic Records, we can capture hundreds of assets that if you were to ask a more traditional advertising agency to do it, it'd just be impossible because they don't have that way of working. So one of my main roles over the coming months and years is to preserve that way of working but guess put a bit more grown up process and dependable, I guess, rigor around it all. And that's the exciting part for me, because I think I've seen it work in some bigger businesses, but I think with Firmative, there's a real opportunity to create a niche for yourself in a sort of creative agency landscape.
Brilliant. So I know you've got many different businesses and had many different businesses, but what's the story that best explains why you're a part of this business? I mean, you sort of mentioned it in terms of the founder, but is there a story that kind of best explains why you do this?
It's a great question. And actually, myself and the founder of Firmative had a common thread, and that is we both cut our teeth as club promoters. I think I mentioned this when we first met. I was a lawyer, didn't work out so well, and found myself around 2002 with my partners, colleagues, running 17 nightclub events a week in London. And at the time, that was a parachute that I found, and was not aware of the personality traits and the skills I was developing. And funny enough, Dummy, the founder of Firmative, very similar, except he started club promoting whilst at university, promoting student nights. And I think in everything I've done, whether that's working as a sports agent, launching Save Our Souls, Firmative, publishing, the skills of sales, the skills of building communities, I suppose, creativity at work, high performing creativity. Like, in 20 years ago, trying to fill a nightclub, there was no such thing as Instagram. It was calling people and asking them and convincing them to attend what was effectively a blacked out basement in Soho. Like you do learn to sell in that environment, and managing a P&L, all these things that I guess just became nature at running club nights. But I think as well, the biggest thing that it gave me, and Dumi talks about this as well, is just the ability to meet people and find common threads. Because again, if you're, I was out, 4 or 5 nights a week in nightclubs, you very quickly know and work out how to mix with people from all different backgrounds. And I think that is a skill that I've just honed in. And now I guess I'm the tip of the spear of our new business. I'm really aware now that I've got a very big network. Like, it's often said, like, lots of people. I didn't really know what that means, but it's really starting to land now that I do know a lot of people. And I think that has come from that skill set I was given as a club promoter. So yeah, look, I think where Firmative is and the background we've got, I think it's really interesting that 2 of the founders from a club promoting background.
Interesting. And obviously you just alluded to some of them there, but you've had many different businesses in different sectors since those days. But if you could go back to that younger self, that club promoting self, and pass on sort of a bit of advice, what would you say to your younger self then, and why?
Well, nothing good happens after midnight, but that's probably a different thing.
I would you say that in an ultramarathon?
Yeah, true. But no, I think that there's plenty of things. But I think the one thing that I definitely has landed in the last 10 years has just been, you can't do it alone. And I think as a sort of a young man, failing in law, wanting to prove himself and prove people wrong and find a thing and something new. I think I was probably quite misguided for 10, 15 years that I can do it myself. I don't need anyone else's help. Whereas really I think it's probably with the experience at Dark Horses and that the first creative agency I found was just 2 real guiding lessons, which were never be the smartest person in the room. And I always used to refer to it as stand on the shoulder of giants. So always make sure there's people in your leadership team that know more than you. And I think that is just, again, at Firmative, it's a really exciting time. We're about to go on a bit of recruitment drive this summer. And again, it's just remembering that you've got to find people that are smarter than you. You always got to put those people in the room. And that for me is quite a big insight, because I do think that in my 20s, it was all about me, all about hoarding. I want to keep the equity. It's my business. When actually, if you're starting from a pot of 100 points, you absolutely should be diluting to bring on best-in-class people.
That's interesting, isn't it? And I think if we think back to what you've sort of talked about with the club promoting days and that advice that's run through those businesses, like, I think Dan Sullivan would term that who, not how, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
You don't have to be the person that knows how to do it. it's finding the who's to help you on that journey.
Absolutely. And listen, I've always been very clear that I've never been, I always used to be a hard worker. That was my thing at school. Like, I was never an A student, but I'd scrape a B, but it would be really, really hard. But that, yeah, and so the writing was on the wall from early doors, right? I was definitely no Elon Musk, but I sort of, as I said, developing the ability to build relationships. I do know some really good people that I've wherever I get the opportunity, I bring them into my world.
Mm. And often that also, that scraping a B, that working really hard, often they find people that I would describe that as me. I mean, I scraped a B, a C, and a D, but I, looking back, I am almost certainly dyslexic. I've never bothered getting tested. But actually, they say dyslexia is an advantage in being an entrepreneur, because it teaches you that lesson that you've got to really work hard and try lots of different things other people don't have to try to get to where you want to get to. And that's kind of like the best lesson in being an entrepreneur.
And it becomes second nature, doesn't it? And, people are always like, oh, you work really hard. I'm just like, this is just what I do. Like, it's not, I don't need to be credited for it. It's just my minimum setting. This is how I'm.
And so if we can take this to another level and think deeper on this, if you could leave no money to your next generation, but just some wisdom or some advice or some values, what would that be, and why?
Again, it's quite a lot of things, but the one thing that through business and personal circumstances, I think the one thing that I do refer back to quite a lot is doing hard things. And I think that it's almost a cliche now. I feel like I need a t-shirt with it on, but it's sort of, I feel like.
Well, you sort of have. And those people listening, he's got UTMB on his t-shirt. So he sort of has got that written on it.
I just think that the sooner you build a relationship with really hard things, the better you're going to be equipped in life, because they're coming at you anyway. And if you can voluntarily put yourself in a situation where you're making friends with pain, you will absolutely just never have an enemy, because it started for me, as I said, with mental health challenges, and that was obviously not voluntary, but when I fell out the legal profession, I had some real challenges and ended up in a private hospital with depression, anxiety, but that was, for me, was sort of that I really understood what pain was then, and that became a sort of moment in my life where I knew I'd hit rock bottom. So then when running was introduced to me and I started running marathons and there was a bit of pain, I was like, that's not pain. I've seen pain. I know what pain is. And then you unlock ultras, then you unlock 1,000 kilometers, and you sort of, whilst doing that in the sort of, I guess, the world of running, you're then making the things that happen to you in the world of business a lot less powerful and have less ownership over you. So, I'm never frivolous, and I never disregard any negative or bad or painful things in business, but I don't really let them affect me, because I know what real pain is. So I think that, if the sooner that you can expose yourself to things that are painful, I do think it makes you a more all-rounded human being.
Brilliant. And what I love what you've just done there, because I was going to ask you to do this at some point, but you've done it naturally, is we've built a bridge between the business of endurance episode and the progress in practice episode, because I think there is such, like, I probably found endurance sport much later on than you did, but boy, did it make me a better entrepreneur, because you, like you say, you learn to do hard things. And do you think that's the success behind the rise in endurance sport, or do you think there's anything else to that?
It's a good question. I think endurance sport, certainly with what I'm doing, is very attractive to a lot of people in their sort of mid-30s to 40s. And I think that says a lot. And a lot of people that you see at the start, and I see at these events, have had things happen in their private lives or business lives that have been challenging, and they do find comfort now in endurance sports. And I think that community is very powerful. It's very strong. But I think there is a rise in endurance sports, but it's quite niche. I do think still. I don't think. And listen, running has definitely become a big thing, and parkrun has been incredible, and we've got all these record entries for London Marathon. But actually, it's interesting. It's a good question. I don't know which comes first. I don't know whether endurance runners get into business or business people get into endurance. I similar to yourself, I think they track in parallel. They were happening at the same time and feeding off each other.
Interesting. My endurance sport definitely came later for me, but it made me better. I'm thinking back to some words. I remember when I interviewed Joe DeSena, he said that it used to be that life was really tough. You know, if you were growing up around one of the world wars, life was tough. You didn't need to do tough stuff when you were home, but now life is a bit too comfortable, and actually doing tough stuff when you're not at work is definitely also good for the soul.
And it's about growth, isn't it? It's just about personal growth. And I always, you don't grow if you're comfortable. Like, it's as simple as that. And I think that, and that just is such an insight that I think, you know, I know that I'll never retire. Now, people might say that's unhealthy, but I couldn't think of anything worse than sitting on a beach or playing golf, and that's just comforting, because I you know, for me, every challenging event or business I'm involved with, I become a better person, and not just a better business, better athlete, but a better parent, a better husband, a better friend. And so, it's a good discovery. And I don't preach, but I hope that with some of the content I create on my Instagram or YouTube, whatever, I only want to inspire. I don't want to preach.
But I agree with everything you just said, and ultimately, if you're not growing, you're dying, aren't you? So you've got to be moving forward. So what's the biggest obstacle that's blocking you from achieving your goals? With Firmative at the moment.
Yes, it's a really interesting time. As I said, we've had incredible growth, 50% growth in the last 12 months, which we're incredibly proud of. Demi and the team have done an incredible job, and I think we're in this phase actually where we work with some big international brands, and without getting too granular, sometimes payment terms aren't too favorable. So we're managing the cash flow is quite hard. We're quite a junior team. As I said, James, myself, and Demi in the leadership group, but our team are quite young. So it's empowering them to make decisions, helping them, guiding them. But the reality for us, the challenge for us is onboarding more senior people. And so for the next 6 months, the second half of this year, the exciting challenge will be bringing on more senior people who, and again, where the challenge lies is people who are in culture, who understand culture, but also have that rigor that you only get probably with experience. So it is a challenge to find experienced people that are in culture, and that is the challenge I have. But it's an exciting one. We're in the right conversations. We definitely have a healthy new business pipeline. I'm sure there's more work for us to get from existing clients, but we just focus now on doing a good job on the briefs we've got, and we don't want to drop the ball there.
Brilliant. And I think you're right in that when you start recruiting, particularly when you start recruiting at a quicker pace, then it's very easy for that culture to become very diluted, isn't it? And so recruiting around culture is such an important thing. I know.
And one bad apple as well can really turn things sour. And I've learned that, and I think that's for me is very much something that we're aware of, that you just got to get the right people on the bus early doors, and especially I always say the first 5 hires will define the business.
Yeah. And I think so. Google always recruit through their culture, through their values, and there's a huge amount that we can learn from how they did that. I've actually got a session that I call the Culture Cultivator, which I'll share with you. I'll share with you afterwards, and I'll put it in the show notes for anyone else that wants to follow up on that, because it's a real challenge. And I think particularly in today's world, in a hybrid world, like maintaining that culture when people aren't even hanging out in the same building can be really tricky.
Yeah, that's a challenge I'm not, I haven't had as a leader, really, to be honest. So that, only really in COVID, which was a bit crazy. But I think, there's definitely a model that suits those that want to spend a bit of time at home and those that want to come in. And I think, we'll get there.
Okay, brilliant. And what book, mentor, framework, documentary, whatever it is, have you found sort of most valuable on your journey, and where does it show up in your business?
I mean, I could swim my camera to the bookshelf. Your book's on there. I mean, that's my
book's on there. Yeah. Excellent. Love it.
There we go.
It must be that one then. No, I'm joking. I
mean, there's so many. I think, to be honest, rather than a book and trying to sort of summarize one of the many books I've read, I think something that definitely applies in both running and with business is just controlling the controllables. And I think that is something that, just harking back to what we were saying earlier about working hard, I think if you maximum effort, always prepared, have discipline. These are things that if you do both at work and in running, then there are certain things, whether it's the situation in the Middle East, whether it's thunder and lightning on an ultra, there's this stuff that's going to happen. But I think as long as you can go into any event or any quarter or meeting or pitch, knowing you've done your best, it's fine. And again, I say that both in the office and at the end of a race. Like going back to, we were chatting about my attempt in Australia to run 1,000 kilometers. Like I prepared so well, and basically I got a stress fracture. There was nothing I could do about a stress fracture in my leg at 500 kilometers in. And so I wasn't downbeat. I just was like, well, I gave it a really good crack. I felt healthy. My mind was strong. And it's the same with any pitch. Like if we've all honestly done well and we've put maximum effort in and we don't win it, then we didn't know who we're against. We can't control what they did.
I love the statement, control the controllables. I think it provides, if you can, and it's not always easy to do because you can get caught in your head, can't you? But I think it's absolutely brilliant advice, and I think it's a great framework to stick to. For those people that are listening that want to find out more about you or find out more about Firmative, where's the best place for them to track you down?
Definitely on Instagram. So yeah, Firmative HQ on Instagram. My Instagram is @ultraentrepreneur, and then Simon Dent on LinkedIn. But yeah, please give us a follow. Please reach out, whether that's from a sort of personal point of view or even just a Firmative point of view. Get in touch. We'd love to hear from you.
Brilliant. Simon, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you as always. Love the fact that we could create that bridge between the business of endurance and progress in practice. And as a reminder for those people at home, the Progress in Practice podcast is brought to you by the trusted team that helps service-based business owners grow their business while working less and enjoying more. And I'll put all the details for the trusted team in the show notes as well. Simon, it's been great to catch up again. Thank you so much for coming on, and I wish you every success with both Firmative and your next running challenge, which is, I think, to do a PB at the marathon.
That's right. Thank you very much. Great to see you again.
If this conversation resonated, you'll find more support, structure and community inside the trusted team, where ambitious service-based founders come to build businesses that are scalable, saleable, and sustainable. You can find out more at thetrusted.team. And if you're enjoying Progress in Practice, please make sure you follow the show and leave a rating and review. It really helps more founders find these conversations and to bring you better and better guests. So until the next time, keep progressing.